Stick one up your nose.
Hello, Frantonio. Hi, Mr. J. How are you guys doing? This should be an interesting live that we're going to have today. We're going to go over some information I don't think a lot of people have and just have a conversation that I feel we need to have with each other. I want to go over what the stock market is doing, but I want to go over it from a really realistic perspective. Oh yeah, everything's doing good with me. I'm glad to hear you're great too, Frantonio. Where do I start? So the stock market's in the tank, right? And I could care less what the stock market does. It's neither here nor there for me. It's a manipulative system. It's just rich people throwing tantrums. And so if they're not getting their way, or if they want to destroy an economy, then they cause the stock market to crash. And I'm going to be giving you the names of some of the top 30 Okay, so I want to break this down. Over almost 90% of the stocks in the United States are owned by the top 10% richest people in the world. Okay, so let's start there. Of the major stockholders for our stocks here in the United States, the majority of them are owned by banks. So I'm going to name some names. We need to know who owns us. I feel like right now we are playing with a situation where rich people are at war. And while they're at war with each other, they are doing some things that are very anarchist in nature. And they're participating in a battle with each other that is trickling over and affecting the common person. And I think that we need to see the situation for what it is and ask ourselves, why is it that they can be anarchist and unpatriotic in nature? And as peons, we have to suffer for this. This is why, those people, you have people who make $100,000 to $500,000 a year and they think they're hot stuff, but they don't realize they're really poor. Well, I want to get into the names of the people who own us. The names of the people who are causing this stock market crash. I want to do something that the news is not going to do for us because they own the news. And so they're going to spin it however they want because they own the news. And I want to talk about whose responsibility this is really. Hi, Derek. Strangely, the Rothschilds are not going to be named. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to name the corporations. And we can look deeper into who owns those corporations. Because people aren't operating under themselves as individuals. The wealthy don't tend to do things like that. Hi, sir. Hi, Mr. J. You said, I said hi to you. Oh, no. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into it. Make sure that you like the videos so that, because I kept moving it back, y'all. We were supposed to do this at 3. And so we are several hours late. And so those people that were waiting for this, I want to make sure that they can see it. So do make sure you click the like button. And I'm just going to go ahead and dig into this. We're going to discuss who is really responsible for the stock market crash. This is not about any, so in a way, the news was telling you the truth, right? When they said that there was a conversation had with the banks and that caused the stock market to crash. In a way, that's true, but not in the way that the news is portraying it. It's true because banks own most of our stock. They are some of the largest shareholders. Banking institutions are some of the largest shareholders in US stock. So when they own almost 25% of stocks, they can make an impact. And behind them are financial companies. So when the financial companies and the banks aren't happy, together, they own almost half of all US stock, 45% of US stock. So when we talk about the stock market crashing, this isn't indicative of any real world problem. This is indicative of the banks and financial institutions are not happy. The top 10% wealthiest people are not happy. And they're going to make our lives miserable because they're pissed off. And I don't know about you, but I'm not too happy about that. I'm not too happy that they can manipulate the course of our lives and control that much of our existence. I think it's crap. Well, Rocksteady, if you've got monies invested in the stock market, let's talk about that. Let's talk about individuals who have money invested in the stock market. It depends on how your money's invested, right? If your money is invested as part of a mutual fund, you have higher representation at around, let me look, 15% of stock. But your percentage of that 15% is like 0.000. You get where I'm going with this? It's not designed so that little people can really, really make money. So I want to speak mostly to bank financial institutions. And then right behind them are people who are invested in mutual funds, but it's the companies that are invested in the stock. You're invested in the fund, they're invested in the stock. And then the state. So the banks, the financial companies, and the state together are making up what, 25, 40, almost 60% of all stockholders. So they're toying with us. They're playing with us, right? But let's get into the names because I want to talk about who owns us because I think, hi, Zero. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. When we talk about having a revolutionary mindset, when we talk about understanding the system that we're living in, when we talk about understanding what is going on in our society, independent of what the news says, because if the wealthy own the news and the wealthy are throwing a tantrum and manipulating our lives because they don't like something, they're not going to tell us that on their news. They're not going to tell us that on Democracy Now! Or CBS or CNN or Fox News. They're all one and the same. They're not going to explain this to us. So I want to go into, hi STL for you. Hi Connor. First of all, Connor, the stock market can't be fine or unfine. That's my whole point, is you have an ignorance of the stock market. The stock market can't be fine or unfine because the stock market fluctuates according to how the people who own most of the stock want it to fluctuate. And at the end of the day, there are like 30 or 40 companies that own almost everything in our stock market. At the end of the day, the banks own almost 30% of all stocks. Financial institutions and banks together own between 40 and 45% of all stock. So it's not a matter of it being fine or not. The Earth's resources aren't going to change. There hasn't been a disaster that's destroyed 3/4 of all the resources on the Earth. This is all artificial movement. The factories that were there Friday of last week, they're still there today. The stockpiles of goods and raw materials, the stockpiles are still there today. So what is going on with the stock market is purely artificial. It is purely based on the emotionality, buying and selling decisions, and movement of a small group of wealthy people. 10% of the wealthiest people own almost 90% of stock. Understand that. That's a small group of individuals. So stock market stability and instability is irrelevant. It's smoke and mirrors. It's an allure. It's not even real. It's like our fiat money. It's all pretend. It's all for show. It means nothing. It's indicative only of the participants. I don't know if you quite understand that, Connor. Well, Connor, again, the stock market is representative of the economy when we consider who owns the stock. Are the same people that own everything consumed in our economy, including China, because Hong Kong owns a great deal of our stock market, believe it or not. I mean, we can't separate these things. It's like you guys seem to think that there are separate individuals doing separate things. No, the same people own everything. The same people own your grocery store, that own your local news, that own the radio stations, that own your schools, that own your prisons, that own your police because they're privatized. The same people own your McDonald's. It's all the same people. The same people that supply the meat to your McDonald's own the stock market. The same people that own the factory farms, the animals that are ultimately sold there, the feed that ultimately comes there, the people who fund everything around you own the stock market. There's no division or separation between the two. There's no division or separation between the two. Your belief that these things are isolated is purely based on indoctrination and ignorance. Because if you follow the breadcrumbs, if you follow the money, it goes back to the same group of people. There's only a few of them. Only a few. A small number, and we're going to name them here today. Yeah, if we don't play the game, Dave, they're finished. That's why I want to have these conversations, you guys. Do like the video, but it's important we have these conversations. But more importantly, we need to know who they are. We need to know who these people are because they work in anonymity, because they know that we are not looking for them, because they don't show up at the Bilderberg meetings, because they don't put their faces on the news. They put their figureheads on the news. They put their figureheads at the TED conferences. They put their figureheads at the NATO meetings. They have their figureheads being CEO of the International Monetary Fund and running the World Bank. They don't get their hands dirty and open. But we're going to follow the breadcrumbs today, and we're going to discuss who's responsible for anything that goes wrong in this country. With the stock market on a mass economic level, we're going to know who to point the finger to. And you'll find a lot of those people right here in the US. You'll find a few of those people right in Europe, but mostly here in the US. You'd be surprised how many of them are here. So we're going to talk about who your owners are. We live in a big hacienda system. Who owns you? Who creates your reality? Who makes the decision for what your life is going to look like in a month? Let's talk about that today. Let's get into the names. Let's get into the names, okay? So 86% of the top 30 shareholders of stock here in the United States are corporations that are based here. And a large percent have owners that can be found here a significant portion of the year. Japan comes at a close second, believe it or not. Great Britain, France, and Germany all hold equal amounts of shares in our stock. But American corporations and Japanese corporations, Japanese-owned corporations, American corporations are holding the majority of our stock. And let's go ahead and take a look at exactly some of the names. And a lot of these you will not have heard of before because a lot of them are not known outside of the exchange system. But I want to start with a company called BlackRock. I encourage you guys to go ahead and Google BlackRock. It's an insidious little corporation that has a lot of pull in the stock market, and you almost never hear about them. Remember, a lot of these are bankers. This is big bank, big financial institutions. Not necessarily always one and the same. Hi, Toriano. Oh, we had a good conversation. Thank you so much for chilling with me the other night. I really appreciate that. Connor said the stock market is controlled and moves because of institutional investors primarily. Those institutional investors use and trade regular people's money. The money in your 401k and bank account. That's not true, Connor. Only 15% of stocks, only 15% of stocks are traded that way. And it's not regular people's money. Let's be clear, regular people have no money. You have nothing. You think the wealthy are worried about money. They're worried about resources. You're worried about money. You and me, poor people, we're the only ones that care about money. On the stock market, they don't trade money. They trade resources. At a certain level of wealth, money is not the question. It's an exchange of resources that's going on. They do direct barter. The wealthy do direct barter. They have no need for money. It's not real anyway. It's all pretend. They make it when they need it. The only person money is real for are you and I, because we have no resources. That's what I'm saying. The whole thing is fake. It's all a joke. It only works because of you and me. It works because of you. It works because of me. It's a joke. It's an absolute joke. If we run out of money today, the apple orchards will still have apples and they'll still be edible. If we burn down every building with cash in it and torch all the money today, There will still be water in your nearest river. Nothing changes. Nothing changes. The resources are still there. The oil is still in the ground. The turnips will still be able to be plucked. The strawberries can still grow. The farms won't all magically disappear. They'll still be there. The key is not the money. The key is the resources and who controls them. The rich don't care about money. They don't need it. They only need it to interact with peons. Because it's all a joke. Hi, Dark Prophet. It's all a joke. Please be sure to like the video so we can get everybody in. So the first organization I need you guys to look into is BlackRock. BlackRock. I'm sure you've never heard of it. Note their CEO, their president. Note them because they own you. They own you. And if anything happens to the stock market, BlackRock is front and center because if they don't move, nobody else is moving. If anything goes awry with the economy, if interest rates start to skyrocket, note them because it's partly their fault, along with their other rich cohorts. The second company I want you guys to look into is AXA. BlackRock and AXA. AXA is about 50% of the size of BlackRock. But BlackRock is huge, right? Between AXA, BlackRock, and JP Morgan Chase, you know, Chase Bank, those are the three big boys on the block. Note them. Note who owns them. Note their top executives. And when you watch the stock market move, know that BlackRock is the biggest player and AXA and JP Morgan Chase are equally evil. And side with them. And they move as some sort of weird, unholy trinity. We're talking about who owns us. We're talking about what's really going on with the stock market. Whose fault is it? When the economy does a nosedive, who's behind it? Forget what the news is talking about. Forget the mess that they're telling you. The 10% of the wealthiest people own almost 90% of our stocks, and they own our radio stations, and they own our news organizations, and they own your grocery store chains and the food where your groceries are grown, the plants that come out of the ground. They fund and they own it all. They own you. They own the house you're sitting on, you're sitting inside of. They own the land under the building that you go to work into. They own it all. When the cop pulls you over, they own them too. They own you. And their fake news and their talking heads can say anything they want, but I want you to mark their names. And I want you to mark their presidents, their CEOs, and make a list. because they like to do things in the background. And they're going to blame it on a tweet Trump said or a conversation somebody had or our market instability. They're going to blame it on anything. And all it is their decision making, because the resources aren't moving, people. The resources are still there. The earth has not suddenly become sour. Only their attitudes are sour. Only their choices have an impact. Everything is as it was before. Nothing's changed but what they have chosen to do. Hi, Marcus. They own YouTube. Yes, it's my point. They own everything. Connor, I let you come and troll my chat room, but don't be an idiot. Okay? Don't be an idiot. Now you come here, you start to spew your brainwashed propaganda. You sound like a parrot of everything that every school and every news organization ever said. But if you fix your little imaginary mouth to speak on anything that doesn't concern you regarding me again, I'll simply block you. And if you're obsessed enough, you can go get yourself another account to stalk me. But tread lightly in my chat room, or I will kick you out. You can take the time out as a brief punishment for your stupidity. Okay? As I said, BlackRock, hi Big Sap, AXA, and JP Morgan Chase. Following them is Capital Group, BlackRock, AXA, JP Morgan Chase, followed by Capital Group. And then we have a duo, Fidelity Investments, which are also known in some places as FMR, and their partner, BPCE. Now, I promise you, other than JP Morgan Chase, you've not heard of any of these companies, have you? And yet they own everything. How is that? How is that? You tell me. My girls are literally singing up a storm in the background. They're singing their little hearts out. I don't know if you heard them. BlackRock, AXA, JP Morgan Chase, the big three. Behind them is Capital Group. Then we have the Gleesome Twosome, Fidelity Investments, and BPCE. Remember, Fidelity Investments has two names. They're also known as FMR LLC. But they operate as Fidelity Investments in a lot of places. Mark them all. Mark their CEOs. Mark their presidents. Know who to hold responsible. We have a lot of these conversations, but we don't talk about who's behind them. This is not a secret. It's only a secret if you're not looking for it, right? It's only a secret if you don't want to know. And again, other than JP Morgan Chase, you've probably not heard of any of these companies. If you have stock, have you heard of any of these companies? For those of you truly invested in stock? Likely not, right? But these are the people who have the power to change the market and also to change how our economy is working, to cause or prevent inflation, control the prices in the grocery stores, control the price of your gas in your house and your electricity. Legal and General Group, State Street, Vanguard Group. See, a lot of times we hear about the little people. JP Morgan Chase is very out there. Vanguard Group is also really out there and visible. Those two that we've heard of for sure. But above all, you guys, mark BlackRock, AXA, and JP Morgan Chase. But Vanguard Group is up there, smaller. To put it in perspective, if you think about how huge JP Morgan Chase is, if you know all the hands and all the pots that JP Morgan Chase is playing in, when we think about BlackRock, they are double the size of JP Morgan Chase. Their impact is twice as much as JP Morgan Chase. A lot of you probably are familiar with the name JP Morgan Chase, but you don't know all of the things JP Morgan has their hands in. A lot of you have heard of Vanguard Group, I'm sure, right? But Vanguard Group is nothing compared to BlackRock. BlackRock could eat Vanguard Group literally 8 to 10 times over. So we're getting to the small time players, but the small time players are still big time players, right? Let me get back to my list. Societe Generale, that's not a US company. I want to focus mostly on the US companies because the US companies are going to have people that are here in the States. Alliance, Credit Agricole. Now, for them, they often operate under SAS. You know, these people have like, I tell you guys all the time that I worked for millionaires for a long time, and they would do business as other things, and then they would have umbrella names. And it's all those umbrella corporations that we're always most familiar with, right? We become familiar with the umbrella corporations. A lot of times we don't know where the breadcrumbs lead. We don't know who the home base and who is ultimately in charge of those corporations. Is Connor still on timeout? Are you still on timeout, Connor? Did you leave? Hopefully he left. He could be on timeout though. Let's go ahead and finish looking at them. I'm going to blow through this list, and then we're going to get into some other stuff, okay? So moving on, we have Bank of New York. We have HKSCC nominees. Rula Bowtie. We have the Mellon Corp. We have Barclays. Barclays is another one you guys may have heard of. Barclays is more well-known. Notice that so far we only have 3 really well-known corporations. Vanguard Group, JP Morgan Chase, Barclays. It's well known to me. It's not well known to everybody, but I feel like if you hear me say the name, you've heard Barclays before. Japan Trust Services. Remember, we talked about Japan is only second to the US in how much stock that they hold. 80%. Just under. The second coming below that 80% are Japanese corporations. That's why we often get preferable treatment when we try to go to Japan as US citizens. We're in business with Japan. So Japan Trustee Services, Goldman Sachs. Okay, I'm going to show you how deceptive the news is. How many times have you listened to them talk about the stock market and they start speaking of JP Morgan Chase and Goldman Sachs? Those names you're super familiar with, right? You hear them a lot, but isn't it crazy? Goldman Sachs is literally like 20 times smaller than BlackRock. But you never hear BlackRock mentioned on the news. But Goldman Sachs is like a favorite. They mention it like they're running everything, and they're literally 20 times smaller than BlackRock. And we never hear about BlackRock, even though they own everything. They're as deep in stock as anybody can get. They can single-handedly change the tide of the stock market and then come back behind that and raise the price of everything in your grocery store and what's in your tank by double, by just breathing in the wrong direction. But we don't hear that conversation happening on the news. But I've heard Goldman Sachs all over the place, haven't you? And then Morgan Stanley, again, another name that we hear thrown around like they're big stuff. But Morgan Stanley is smidgy less invested than Goldman Sachs, and BlackRock makes them look like nothing. So why are the smallest players in the game the ones we're always hearing about? You don't find that odd? The people who literally can make no impact, but the big boys, we don't hear about them. You haven't heard of most of these people. And then we get into Franklin Resources and Deutsche Bank. And Deutsche Bank is another one that I know you guys have heard of a lot. Deutsche Bank, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley. You hear about them all the time. It's like if they do anything, it's really going to matter. It doesn't matter. But you know who does matter? BlackRock matters. AXA matters. And to a lesser degree, JP Morgan Chase. Like I said, but BlackRock is the big boy on the block. I mean, BlackRock is the hugest thing in stock. The hugest thing in stock. Essentially, whatever BlackRock does, it's what everybody else is going to do. AXA and JP Morgan Chase are just up there simply because they're bigger than everybody else. But then Capital Group is right behind them. After Capital Group, we're talking under 100,000 shares. I'm sorry, under 1 million shares. When we talk about everybody else. But we need to have our eye on BlackRock. And that brings me into just what I was saying about, us being deluded and overall just confused. Oh, Darius, I should be able to do that. I'll try to make a note of it. Here, let me screenshot it so I don't forget. Because sometimes I'll forget. So I screenshotted it. BlackRock is the company that owns almost all of our stock here in the United States. They're the biggest stockholder, the biggest, the top. When they're like the stock market is crashing or it's doing really well, they're really talking about what BlackRock is doing. They're twice the size. Well, they're more than twice the size of JP Morgan Chase. And AXA is bigger than JP Morgan Chase. All those other people, like I said, Goldman Sachs, Fidelity Group, all those people, they're small fries. The ones you hear about all the time, they're nothing. They're nothing. They have nothing to do with anything. Collectively, I guess, but like not really. Do you know what I mean? And so the whole point of this, again, for those that are just coming in, is that you have the top 10% wealthiest people owning almost 90% of US stock. And because they're mostly made up of banking institutions and financial institutions, to the tune of almost half, what the banks and financial institutions want, why do you think we bailed them out? That faux bailout, not that they need to be bailed out, they own everything. Why do you think we bailed them out? They could have single-handedly crushed the stock market. Some of these things are not even choices. But again, like it's all a farce. It's all pretend. Trump called out the Fed, and he was right. But here's the thing. If you're going to pander to the Fed's fiat money and you're going to play the globalist game, you can't really call out the Fed. You might as well kiss their butt. Because we need their fiat currency. We need them to print some more useless pieces of paper so that you and I and the rest of the peons can go out and do our business. I don't see how people are confused about this, but moreover, I have to wonder why it is that we are so committed to this system and that we allow ourselves and our lives to be manipulated by this system. Why is that? When we know that it's useless, that it's fake, that it's a joke. When we're sitting here and we can very quickly read off a list of people who control everything, we could simply not participate with them. You're not a peon, James Bundy? What are you then, if you're not a peon? Let's look up the word peon. So you said you're not a peon. I don't mean offense to you, but I'm going to say you are a peon. Let's see who's right. A peon is essentially somebody of low rank. You're not a peon? A person who does menial work. You're not a peon? Is that not what it is? Peons are part of peonage. Peonage is debt slavery. You're not a peon? You're not? You're not a debt slave? You're not in debt servitude? That's not your life? Do you own a car? Who owns a car? Who has a car loan? Who has student loans? Who has a credit card? Who has an overdrawn bank account? Who has a house loan? Who has a business loan? Who's kicking out cash every day on interest and to pay money back that they borrowed because they really didn't have it? You don't have any of those things? You would be one of the few then, James. Now, if all 50 of you guys start talking about you don't, I'm gonna know you're lying, okay? Because real talk, America is built on you being a peon. America is built on peonage. That's all the Western world is about, is peonage. I'm trying to understand how my chat room is full of people making $90,000 a year and heavily invested successfully in stock market, and my super chats aren't off the chain. Explain that to me. I'm trying to understand. How is that possible? I feel like you guys are playing with me. I feel like y'all are joking. But that's why I titled this Collective Confusion and Mass Delusion, right? I titled it that way because we are collectively deluded about the system that we live in. We're collectively deluded about our positioning in society. We are extremely confused about the status quo. When I started doing my cognitive liberation series, and when I started doing my series on revolution, what I recognize is a lot of people probably want to go and double back and listen to those series, because when we hear people say things like, we're going to legislate our way anywhere, when the system is built that you have representation, but only to the point that you cannot affect the functions of government. When the system is built for 10% of wealthy people to control what goes on to the tune of almost 90% of the most important companies in the United States, when banking institutions are essentially the most important bodies, the same banks that give you your credit cards, the same banks that give you your home loans are the same banks that can crash your stock market. That's not a questionable system. It provides the illusion of diversity and forward movement, but not so much. And what it takes to make us comfortable as a people is astonishing. So with that said, I'm not going to drag this out. And I have a feeling, honestly, because people come in and out, right? So if there's 50 of you at any given time in the chat, that means maybe around 200 people have been coming in and out during this conversation. I just gave you the names of the people who are effectual in controlling your reality. These would be the people who we want to disengage from, right? If you care about disengagement. I mean, like I said, comfort is a funny thing, but with all of our leaders running around acting completely stupid, with all of our leaders running around playing the anarchy game, with the 10% wealthiest people playing games with our stock market, and it won't be far behind that they start playing games with the economy, you would want to mark them. And you would want to decide if it makes sense for anything to have the illusion of change when the actual resources and the actual modes of resource transfer and acquisition have not changed. It is purely based on the whim of the wealthy. And they don't want to follow the rules. Nico 5150 said, I read a list, explain the next step. What's my plan? I mean, what's my plan? Like I said, I encourage people to be cognitively liberated. I encourage people to be revolutionary in their mindset. I do series on revolution. I do series on cognitive liberation. My stance is that the system is faulty and flawed and needs to be purged and rebuilt. I'm asking our men, what is yours? I share my feelings and my viewpoints, right? But as a woman, I'm looking to the leadership of our men. What are you guys going to do? I did a whole conversation on the types of force that can be used. Cooperative, coercive. There's a list. A combination of different kinds. But see, the first thing is investment in the system, right? If you're invested in the system, it's a moot conversation. I just like to have the conversation because maybe you'll decide it's not for you. Maybe you guys will think what I think. I say what I think, and what I think should happen all the time. I talk about it all the time. I think in our country, we have revamped the systems once. We participate in a faulty system now. We've been overrun by the banks and the wealthy. We see the crazy nutcases on the left. They're very revolutionary minded. All the stuff they want is weird, though. They just want weird things to go on. They want us to all live in a socialist society where everybody is gender neutral and our borders are open, where your child becomes a ward of the state, and slavery is kept healthy and alive through the prison system. So they're doing their side of things. They've got their vision. They're working it out. Is there anybody that wants to work out something different? Hold on. I've got to get the cord to my computer, you guys. Give me a second. So as far as my plan, I mean, I'm upset that anybody is asking me my plan as a woman. Don't ask me. What's your plan? Oh, well, what did I do? Oh, there we go. I know. I just had like a technical difficulty. I think I had a short. I think my light shorted, you guys. Like my little light I'm using for a spotlight, because where I live, it's so awful. What are you guys arguing about? I don't know, J. Rome. I don't even celebrate Christmas, so I didn't go broke during Christmas. Good evening, Dylan. Cynthia G. Oh, because I said the men should lead? Really? I've always said that. What are you talking about? If you watch my videos, when I talk about male headship and female submission, I mean, let me say this. I'm 5'2" and a woman. I could be the leader. I mean, I guess, like, I don't know. I know some of the men here are literally like 6'4" and giant. Like, should I take the lead? Like, let's take a consensus of the chat. Should I be the leader of the men? Just my question. You guys know me. You know my nature. Would I make a good leader? of men, of actual men. Derek, simply because I said that I wanted the men to lead, that could be the only thing he's talking about. I think that's something Cynthia is on point with. Cynthia also believes in female submission. Her delivery is very different, but I don't know if you ask me as a woman, what's my plan? I'm going to go, my plan is to follow the men. My plan is to support and take my place behind the men as they move. I can come here and I can talk about how I feel all day long, but my plan is going to be to support you guys. I'm going to see if I can't get another light for my light so that you guys can actually see me. Can you guys see me? Do I need to get another light for my light? Or am I okay? Men are supposed to lead, and if women don't want to follow, yeah, exactly. You know what type of woman you're dealing with. Exactly, Tony. Yeah, James, exactly. I don't know. Like, I'm in agreement with these men. Exactly, an assistant. Sir, really? You think that's my thing, Nico? Well, you should watch my video on do women not want blue collar men, if that's what you think my thing is. Oh, is the lighting okay? Okay, that's fine. It was a little better earlier, but like something blue. I don't know, y'all. I live by the forest. I can't. I can't with this forest life. Things are very iffy here in the forest. But yeah, I mean, I can talk about what I know. I can share information that I have, but the leadership and the movement is going to have to be men. And I will take my place as our men move or as they don't move. You know what I mean? Like, I can't. Yes, men are supposed to lead. Exactly. So there seems to be a consensus. I mean, I know my place as a woman, but I feel we also need to mark. I feel we need to mark and understand what is going on because I think with understanding comes being unsettled. And when people are unsettled, and I talk about this in my series on revolution, the key to stopping social revolution and social revolution includes the change of the functionings of government and things like that. The key to stopping that is that you keep people comfortable and you keep them participating in the system and having faith in governmental structures. And when you do that, then people are less likely to be revolutionarily minded. And I guess that's okay. Do you know what I mean? But I just feel like right now, people are breaking the law left and right, y'all. They're breaking the law for the immigrants. They're stepping on our rights for the gays and transgenders. You have people in the White House breaking the law. All the rich people are doing whatever they want to do. And then on top of it, they're tiddling with the stock market, and it won't be long before they tiddle with the economy. So, well, here's the thing, Warwick. Men are simps for leading now because you're not supposed to be men. You're supposed to be like asexual beings, all sensitive and stuff, void of all that toxic masculinity and all of that stuff. You're supposed to be basically girls with penises. That's essentially what the new rhetoric is. That's what a simp is. A simp is anybody who doesn't act like a girl. Anybody who doesn't conform to the current status quo. Anybody, you know what I mean? Like, I don't understand it. I feel like we live in topsy-turvy land now. Exactly, Elgos. The law is fluid depending on how much power you have. Because you had that congresswoman go down and help an illegal immigrant break into America. And then she was all over the news like some kind of hero. Really? Can I break a law and be a hero? I just want to know. Can I do that? That would be awesome. Debt discharge? Yeah, Nico, but I will tell you something. We don't even need debt discharge because debt is a farce too. How are you going to owe something that doesn't exist? There's not even actually enough money to pay back all the debt. It's just all a joke. It's all stupid. We could just say, screw this. We don't want to do this anymore because the only thing that gives money power is the participation of the people using the money because it is a vehicle for barter. Like I said, the rich barter resources. Where are the resources? The resources is on the land. Who controls the land controls the resources. America's got a lot of land. It's got a lot of peons. I don't know. It's just a thought. I'm not going to stay here all night with you guys. I started this live much later than I wanted to. But like I said, America's got a lot of land. It's got a lot of sleep people on it. The rich are already breaking the law. Law is as effective as people are willing to acquiesce to it. Systems are as effective as people are acquiescent. I feel like that short list of people shouldn't have so much pull in what goes on with us. But they have the pull because they control the resources. No, Elgos, there's no bailouts for people because we're all slaves. You don't bail out slaves. The system is dependent on our slavery. So we have to decide what we want to do, but I just wanted to speak on that. I just wanted to speak on what's going on with the stock market, what will likely be going on with the economy, the way the rich are moving right now. Like they're moving like they're anarchists. I mean, the way they are moving is crazy. But the poor, the people who need to move with a little more aggression and assertion aren't moving at all. Everybody who's having this forward movement is an idiot. They're breaking laws for immigrants, breaking laws for transgender, just a bunch of stupid people. Congress people standing up, releasing documents that don't even need to be released, playing Spartacus. Everybody's breaking the law. People in the White House declassifying information, telling all the president's business, purposefully sabotaging and stealing documents off of the president's desk. Everybody's breaking the law to do and get what they want out of this country. But the peons are just sitting around playing on the Monopoly board while everybody else is all up in the bank stealing all the cash. 15 houses on Boardwalk ain't bought nothing. But the peons are just sitting there still looking at the rule book, refusing to do anything different. But we're the ones that are going to get shafted while everybody else does what they do. Yeah, there's no action. I mean, there's action. It's just action by everybody but us. We never take any action. But see, you know what I think is unique about this time? I think that right now it's a unique time, you guys. Because right now, everybody is moving really, really sideways. Everything is just really messy right now. Nobody's watching the back door. And that's what makes now a unique time. I don't know how long this window will stay open, but it's wide open right now. It's all about climbing through the window. It's all about climbing through the window. And with that said, I'm going to get out of here. I will talk to you guys later. I'm going to be putting up my news and world headlines. It turned out just to be US headlines. There was nothing going on in the world I really cared about, y'all. But that video will be going up probably in the next hour. And I thank you guys for joining me. I should actually be having Obsidian here on Saturday. I'm going to be bringing some controversial men onto my channel. And I think they're going to be good and positive builds. I really do. But you know, I like to bring people with different opinions and different mindsets here. So I'm looking forward to that. And with that said, y'all, I'm going to go. I'm so thirsty. I'm literally about to have the biggest glass of water ever because I'm like dehydrated. I've had nothing but 2 glasses of tea all day to drink. And now my body is like liquid, liquid, liquid. So I'm going to go give myself some water and I will talk to you guys later. Enjoy your evening. And maybe I'll do a few lives later in the day because I know I normally do my lives earlier and so many people aren't available for them. Bye-bye.